Sails are the engine of a sailing boat, and like any engine they need careful preparation and tuning to get the best performance, and ultimately to get the boat moving through the water quickly. This program is aimed at helping you trim your sails in relation to the weather conditions, and therefore improve your boat speed. However, before we explain the techniques, it's a good idea to understand how a sail works and what makes it more efficient. The sails act in many ways like an aeroplane's wing. They're shaped to maximise lift and minimise drag. Different conditions demand different shapes to optimise these two parameters. In light winds, drag can actually be induced to increase the performance. So how does the sail work? When the air flows over the sail or wing, the air flowing over the curve travels further than the air on the other side, because the parted air particles have to meet at the other end. The air flowing over the curve must therefore travel faster. If not, a vacuum would exist. This faster flow creates low pressure and lift. The faster the flow, the greater the lift. On a sail going to windward, this exerts a large unwanted side force, or heeling, and a relatively small forward force. The keel helps to counteract the unwanted side force. The keel works because the heeling force makes the boat go sideways through the water, a leeward motion, and this changes the symmetrical shape of the keel into a foil which gives the boat lift and therefore an ability to go to windward. The combination of a genoa and a mainsail helps extend these forces greater than the sum of the independent forces, and the boats that set sails as one unit will go faster. The genoa sails in a relative lift and the main in a relative header. The shape of the sail is determined by its draft and the relative position of the draft. There are many other parameters. For example, horizontal camber, twist, angle of attack, and finally the vertical camber distribution. To demonstrate a desired shape, let's take a closer look at the draft. The draft controls the power, the acceleration, and the drag. Again, we can use the comparison of an aeroplane, which in this diagram has its flaps down with the engine on full power. The aeroplane doesn't reach maximum speed, but it gets maximum lift. As the plane's speed increases, the flaps are pulled back and the maximum speed is achieved. In a sailing boat, this effect not only increases speed, but also gives better pointing ability. A deep sail is best for acceleration and therefore better immediately after attack or to power through waves. A flat sail will be faster in smooth water or when sailing at high speed. You could think of it as a deep sail as low gear and a flat sail as high gear. The position of the maximum draft is generally about 45% in mainsails and slightly forward of this at 40% in genoas. The horizontal shape, which is taken from the luff to the leach, is designed with a fair curve to promote laminar flow, which means the air flows smoothly over the surface. Beyond 50% of the chord length, the flow becomes detached and turbulent, creating drag. The fine tuning of setting the sails is aimed at reducing this drag. As I said earlier, when both sails are in tune with each other, the combined attached flow is greater than the two individual sails can develop. Okay, here we have a Sigma 38 Genoa, which we are going to point out two specific items. First is the tailtails, which you look at when you're sailing to windward, and the second is the speed stripe, the red line here, which allows the camber of the sail to be looked at and observed. This is very important for different wind conditions where you will increase the luff tension to get the correct sail shape as the wind speed increases. As the wind speed increases and you take the tension, it pushes cloth forward, which the headstay will push back, allowing the correct shape of the sail to be developed. And this is very important to adjust for different wind conditions the relative luff tension so that the shape of the sail stays. So now it's up to the crew to set the sails according to the conditions of the day. If we look up from the foot of this Genoa towards the top or head, we can clearly see the speed stripes. Now, if we have the foot too loose, by bringing the sheet lead forward, the leach closes up. Now, if we tighten the foot, Bringing the lead aft, the leach opens up. If we put the lead in the correct position, we get the desired shape. But of course, in heavy winds, when overpowered, the sail should be flattened off and twisted off to reduce the heeling forces. But in light winds, we deliberately close the leach to create more lift. The objective when trimming the Genoa is to maintain the right draft position with the correct angle to the wind. When going upwind, there is a trade-off between the speed and pointing ability. The Genoa is controlled by the halyard, the sheet, the fair lead position and the forestay tension. Now we come to setting the Genoa, and the most important is to get the halyard tension correct. And most people would put far too much tension. It's far better to have less tension on the luff so that you in fact get some wrinkling coming from the front of the sail, and then fine-tune this after the sail has been set. Your next control is to have the car position in the correct place, and for this you take a point approximately 50% of the luff length of the sail down through the clew, and this will give you your initial point for the Genoa car. We then put the boat into the direction we want to sail and trim in on the sheet to have the sail looking and trimmed correctly. We then need to fine-tune the position of the car, and we do this by looking at the tails on the luff of the sail and ensuring that they break evenly on the top and at the bottom. If the tail at the top is breaking before the tail at the bottom, we move the car forward, and inversely if we move the car aft when the tail at the bottom breaks before the one at the top. I emphasize again that it's important that the two tails break at the same time. We now need to look at the shape of the sail, and we want to have a nice smooth aerofoil on our speed stripe, and we balance this with the halyard tension and the amount of sheet that we have. The sheet controls the twist and the halyard controls the position of the depth of flow, and by working with these two we can achieve the correct shape. One of the best ways to look at a sail is to move forward to the middle of the foot and look up and aft. From here you can look up and see the shape of the sail with the speed stripes and the twist of the sail, and also the slot, the interaction between the Genoa and the leeward side of the mainsail. The next control that comes into play is to ensure that the forestay is as straight as possible, or is as straight as we require it for the wind conditions in which we're sailing. And we see here the different effects that we can achieve by having the forestay tight or the forestay loose. We can then balance the amount of sag that we're getting in the forestay with the halyard tension and the sheet lead to produce a variety of different sail shapes. Okay, we want to look now at the shape of the Genoas for different conditions. If we're sailing in flat water, we can sail with a sail which is less deep in camber, and we can sheet it a little harder. This is because the boat requires less power in order to make its way through the waves. If we're sailing in choppy conditions, you want the maximum of power from the sail in order for the boat to punch through the waves. And to do this, you will deepen the sail and take a little more halyard tension to make the luff a little rounder. This makes it a lot easier for the helmsman as well to sail the boat in a nice steady course. This is classically called sailing in the groove, and is in fact one of the prime objectives in setting your sails, is to trim them that the boat will sail in a nice groove. It will tend to sail itself. You shouldn't be adjusting everything all of the time. You should try and achieve a balance from the sails that the boat will sail itself. Here we are sailing with the number 1 Genoa, and it's at the top of its range, and we've hoisted the sail with the minimum amount of luff tension, and you can see by the creases coming off the luff that more tension is required. So Chris, could you put some more tension on? And I use the Genoa sheet here so that the pressure is balanced. That's good. And then wind the sail back in. Okay, we're sailing along here now, and the boat is overpowered, so we need to depower the Genoa, and we do this by moving the sheet lead aft, and this will open the slot and hopefully make it a little easier. And now we can see that the slot has opened up quite a lot. We can sheet the sail on. The boat is a little easier to sail and the speed can come back. It's very important to have the correct leech line tension. You don't want to have too slacker leech line so the sail's flogging like now, and you don't want to have too much leech line so the sail hooks at the back end. You just want to take sufficient tension so that the sail quietens down.